Hello, welcome to the Geek Quorum. I'm Brian.
And I'm Byrne. Today we are talking about the show everyone is talking about right now, which is Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1. Whoo boy, we've been waiting a long time for this one and can't wait to start talking about it. Brian, you first. What did you think?
Well, first of all, I want to say it was fun to watch it together separately because we did the Disney Plus group watch thing. And so, in this era of COVID, that was kind of a fun experience. I liked that we were able to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's honestly the first time, Brian, we have ever watched a show together on any of the shows we've ever talked about or commented on.
Yeah,
I
in real
think
time.
And it was the first time I watched a show with a friend, of course, during the pandemic. But truth be told, I can't remember the last time I really sat down with someone and we watched a show together. It was years and years and years ago. So that was a lot of fun. It was good to react to all the kind of moments and share in that.
And there were so many moments. So, one of the things I really liked about this episode, and I think is the thing that they have in their like mission statement of, or their show Bible, it probably says this is a Western in space. And I thought that they did a fabulous job of setting up Mando entering the town on his speeder, but proxy for horse, when he's going through the town and like the people are looking out the windows and they're kind of eyeing him, sort of like any Clint Eastwood movie where he's kind of galloping in and kind of like side eyeing everything, and eventually gets off and almost I was expecting him to rope uh, his speeder to a post or something. It was just really
I was
nicely
too.
done.
I totally was doing that too. I was waiting. Um, I think you're very keen to point out because I got the same signal. Like this was very intentional. The directors are saying like we're going to go over the top a little bit to kind of really cement this idea in the viewer's mind. I thought went a little. It was a little heavy-handed, not just in those few sequences, but throughout, from all the way down to the story. The Sand People being a clear allegory to indigenous Native Americans or any indigenous people for that matter. The Western town, the conflict between the natives and the colonialists, the coming together and having to join forces. It worked. It totally worked.
So it was fun to watch together, and this is of course the premiere of season 2, and it sets the tone for the season. It was a monster episode, 50 minutes, and quite epic.
I think epic is the best word to describe it. It's how I've described it to my friends. And I've thought a lot about what that means to me, but the special effects, the scale and the ambition of the effects sequences and of the scenery and of the action, I think is unprecedented for the series.
I think we both were really enjoying watching that episode. And um, now that said, I have higher standards for this season because last season was great, and I want to. I'm just going to be grading on a higher curve this time. So it was a great episode, like we said, epic. That said, I kept thinking back to the pilot episode, which we've talked about a couple times, and I've praised quite a bit because it was a fabulous first episode that set up everything that happened in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many little markers that they paid off throughout the season. For a 50-minute episode that, granted, was pretty epic, I don't know that too much was that different from where we left off at the end of last season.
How much of that do you think is the choices you make in filming, say, a series premiere versus a season premiere? The story has been established at this point.
Sure.
The mission of the main character and the quest of the character, everyone understands. So how do you begin a season for which the series is already well understood?
Well, that's a good point. However, if you have certain TV shows that are really, really good, if you analyze them really carefully, the first episode or maybe 2 of the season, they lay groundwork for what happens further on. Again, I think they may have, and we just didn't see it. But I think for a, I guess, 8 episode season, which I think this is going to be, the first episode, which again was a really big one in length, but not that much different, except for the very, very end where there's a reveal.
Right. I think one of the challenges I have in my experience of this show as a fan is, well, you saw how much I loved how epic and grand in scale the effects were. I want that same scale and epicness a part of the narrative itself. So, for example, with the regular trilogy or any of the movies, within the context of that movie, you're traveling across the galaxy. You're following many plot lines at the same time. In Game of Thrones, that's one of the things that makes Game of Thrones such a fascinating and wonderfully kind of immersive world, is all the different perspectives of the world you get to see. With Mandalorian, you still primarily view the world strictly through one person's eyes. And that really limits, I think, your capacity to achieve that kind of grandeur that we are accustomed to as fans.
Well, that said, I give them plenty of leash because they had a great first season, and I am very confident in the filmmakers and the writers, producers, etc. But they did give us one thing at the end of this episode that we could chew on, and that is the sort of mysterious character that was at the end. And I say that because we know the actor is the guy that played Jango Fett in the movies. So obviously he is either Boba Fett or a clone of Jango Fett.
How do you feel about that? Do you have a preference for what you think it should be versus what you think it is?
You know, this is something I've been thinking about quite a bit. And I mean, going back to last season, when that first teaser happened of the character walking up on a Tatooine with the boots that were like, you know, making those little spur sounds, and people were saying, oh, that must be Boba Fett. And you and I were saying, no, come on, that's not going to be that. That would be ridiculous. Well, here we are. I'm of two minds. Part of me wants it to be Boba Fett, because it's a stretch to have Boba Fett's armor out in the world. So obviously he or somehow escaped, and then have a guy who is Fett DNA in that same vicinity, and it had not be Boba Fett, would be just kind of like, well, what are you trying to do here? What kind of switcheroo are you trying to do? On the other hand, as much as I hated the demise of Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi, I kind of am okay to just let that lie and just assume that he did escape at some point and he's just off somewhere, but not necessarily bring him back into the story.
I'm of a similar mind. I think Boba Fett should die. I think it's so important to stories for there to be cost to the choices and actions that characters make, and death is the ultimate price that any character can pay. And when you resurrect people, be it Darth Maul and Star Wars is not the only franchise that does this, but when you bring people back, I think it undermines the story by cheapening or lessening the sacrifice and the choices and the risk that characters undertake. I think you could have I thought the show, I had heard the rumors of the return of Boba Fett, and when I saw Timothy Olyphant walk in with his armor, you realize that's not Boba Fett. Yeah. He's way too tall for the character. It's not the complete, outfit. And I thought it was like, that's a great way, right? What a great cheat for the audience, right? You can build up a good buzz, but then it's Boba Fett, but it's not Boba Fett. And I can totally get, right? Like an animal can digest all of the biological matter and expel all of the non-biological matter. And that's how you can find the armor in the desert. So I totally bought into it. And at the end, it's clear that that's Boba Fett. And then it just makes you, I don't know. I think it's a cheap storytelling trick. And I think I think it undermines the story.
I don't know that they need it. I think maybe the first season when people weren't sure about this whole Mando thing, but this show has its own legs now. It's got Baby Yoda, it's got Mando, it has all these side characters that we've, you know, seen and liked. I don't
Now the
know
idea
that they
though
need
that
this.
yeah, the idea though that it could be a clone, that it's not Boba Fett. It is Boba Fett, but it's not Boba Fett, that kind of thing, right? Because he is a clone, and so he's genetically Boba Fett, I guess.
And then it's like, well, what if it is Boba Fett? What does that bring to the story? Because you can't just bring him in for like a guest episode and then he's gone again.
I think for the story, he's going to serve a very quick purpose. He might be a cameo that maybe appears from time to time, but I think he'll be a character that puts Mando on the path towards finding the other Mandalorians. Like, I think Boba Fett, if you're Boba Fett and you die, I'm sure you can emerge from the Sarlacc pit thinking to yourself, all right, I'm done with all this. Like, time to move on. Throw out the armor, turn your back on the Order, but never quite lose touch. Maybe even be fleeing from the Order. I don't know.
I just have so many questions. If it is Boba Fett and he escaped and he's just been hanging out on Tatooine for how long? So let's say it's 5 or 6 years after Return of the Jedi. Not a long time, but still, I think if you're savvy and got some skills like Boba Fett does, you'd be able to find your way off that planet. And why would you want to stay there? There's nothing there. I think he would have just gotten out of there.
Well, this brings me back to a whole other problem I
know
have.
Where you're going. I know where you're going.
Yeah, so Tatooine. Yes, it's a great planet to go and disappear to, yet it is the planet that seems to have everything. It's like the center of the universe. It's the backwater planet that is the center of the universe. That is really frustrating. Like Mando, speaking Sand People, like speaking Tusken. I'm sorry. Like, the Tusken are clearly characterized as an indigenous people. I do not get the sense that they are space-faring. Not that they have never been to space, but they are predominantly local to Tatooine. What reason would you have to learn their language?
Good question.
Unless you live
Jawas
there
have been
and
seen
do
on other
business
planets, but Jawas seem to just be like their little vermin that goes everywhere. So yeah, you're right. I don't think Tuskens are that widespread in the galaxy. I think, like you said, they're kind of indigenous. It's frustrating. I don't know what to say.
And if Boba Fett, I'll just heap on. If Boba Fett truly is a Mandalorian, and I'm not sure of that provenance, like, I want to see the certificate of authenticity to know that he's truly a Mandalorian, because he was not raised by Mandalorians as far as I know, but what do I know?
Right.
But if you are a Mandalorian and no one has seen your face, slipping out the back door should be a pretty easy gig.
Yeah.
Right? So, yep. And of all the planets in the galaxy you could go to, why pick that one? Tatooine is the mystery of the Star Wars universe. Why everything seems to come back to Tatooine. It's like Rome, for crying out loud.
Yeah. I mean, it really needs to have had a plot point in one of the movies or something where they discovered that at one point there was a Jedi temple buried under the sand or something, that it was just like emanating force or something, because there's just no other reason or excuse for this to be the center of it all. But
here's one thing that was really surprising. The child is the star of this show. Sorry, Mando, but it's all about the child. The child was on screen, apart from his ears flapping in the breeze, really had no part in this story at all.
Yeah.
I struggle with that a little bit. Mando went on this whole side quest just to acquire some armor.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying before about how it's a 50-minute episode, but if you look at season 1, episode 1, it was 36 minutes, 40 minutes, and there was multiple locations they went to. There was all these characters they introduced. And
characters that persisted throughout the season.
Exactly, yeah.
There's not a single Tusken who we're going to see again. We're not going to see the Marshal.
Right. And even this episode, as much as I enjoyed it visually, I was watching it and enjoying it, but I was at the same time thinking, there are zero stakes in this right now. The town could be swallowed by the Krayt Dragon, and okay, I don't really have much attachment to these people, and I'm pretty sure that Mando's not going to die, the child's not going to die. Maybe he'll get the armor from the marshal, maybe he won't. But I was like, it just didn't have a lot that really deep suspenseful thing of like, oh, I really am scared for this character or that character to meet an end, and or to get what they really need. I think part of it too is that it felt like a sort of a mashing of 2 season 1 episodes. Like, I kept thinking back to the second episode of season 1 with when they had to go get the egg from that horn
the
beast.
the mudhorn,
and then the other episode where they, like you mentioned, the AT-AT or AT-ST, and they had to help the villagers. It was like, it's kind of the same. They're helping townsfolk and the Tuscans. They didn't have to like train anybody because they're already, kind of versed in how to survive out there. But I don't know. So I'm like,
I think the pattern they're falling into, if I'm going to learn anything from season 1, Mando right now is going to be going across the galaxy, meeting and picking up people who will come back later and help him. So will we see the end of Timothy Oliphant? I just kind of glibly said we're never going to see him again. No, chances are he probably will come back into the story. There will be a climactic reunion in some respect as Mando faces an obstacle that can only be overcome through teamwork.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, how they kind of pull people in. That's how they bring the payoff of all these little characters. And I think the question is always what characters will be involved throughout and how will they be looped back in.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to the next one. I mean, like I said, we've kind of been a little critical here, but again, I have higher standards because it's a really, really good show, and I have faith that they are going to be able to pull it off. And again, I want to just say that I did enjoy it, but I'm looking forward to it having more narrative punch going forward, not just the visual punch.
But I think that's what sets us apart, Brian. Like, I mean, we're not sycophantic fanboys. We love Star Wars. We grew up on Star Wars. It's nostalgic. At least it is very nostalgic for me. Mm-hmm. We can sit and watch a show and enjoy it tremendously, and we can talk critically about it. And I think that's really what this is about. Here, we're about kind of what's going to make a good story, what makes a compelling story. I think that's more our jam. Do I hear something? I think
yes. I think we hear the jump clock. It's running. It's running down.
Yeah.
That means it's time to go. And we look forward to hooking up next time. Thanks for joining, subscribing. See you next time.
So say we all.
Thanks so much for watching Geek Core. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, turn on the post notifications bell, give this video a big thumbs up, and make sure to share this video with as many people as possible. It really helps our channel.